Hello everyone, Adelaja here. Welcome to another class, another teaching today on depression and understanding suicide, mass shooting and depression. Understanding suicide, mass shooting and depression. Yesterday I spoke about the external factors that might be responsible for depression, or external factors that could be responsible for your depression. Today I'm going to be talking about internal factors, just like I promised. I'm talking about internal factors that could be responsible for depression, for your depression or for the depression of people that are around you. So what are these factors? Now, the difference, of course, between the external factors and internal factors are that the fact that the external factors are coming from outside. So you could have identified the reason for your depression from those ones. But there are times when you don't see and you don't have any outward or external factor like that that could be pointed at as saying, okay, this is what is responsible for my depression. So no external factors, nothing to point to, everything seems perfect, but you are depressed anyway. So that is when we now go to what we call the inner factors. There might be internal factors and inner factors that might be responsible for this. There are two main factors when it comes to internal factors that are responsible for depression. At least that I'm going to speak about today. Maybe the next day I'm going to speak about another one. But the ones that I want to speak about today, which are responsible for which are responsible for depression as internal factors, are number one. The number one reason, what the internal factor for depression, number one of them, which is the most prominent, is called inner critic. A lot of people suffer from depression because of their superactive or overactive inner critic. So let's deal with the inner critic first before we mention the second one. So what is inner critic? Inner critic is what is inside all of us, like our conscience. But the inner critic is a bit okay, we could say it's part of your conscience. It is still your conscience. But when it's overactive, when the conscience is overactive, or when your conscience is hyperactive, because a conscience is not only a critic, but conscience itself is a larger body that is present in all of us. But part of the conscience is to criticize, is to act as your inner critic. But there are times when that function of inner criticism that your conscience gives you goes overboard. So the inner critic is what we are all familiar with. It's supposed to point to you when you are doing something bad or when you are doing something negative. So inner critic is that inner voice that speaks to you about what you are doing wrong or what you are not supposed to be doing, but you are doing. So inner critic is a good thing. Inner critic is a blessing. Inner critic is a way that God has put in us to be able to prevent us from evil and to also present us from destroying ourselves. Inner critic is something that God has given unto us so that we'll be able to be, in a straight line through life. But when inner critic becomes too active, when inner critic becomes hyperactive, then that is a problem. Then that could lead you into a major depression. So when I talk about inner critic, I'm not talking about you criticizing others now. That is the second thing we're going to be talking about. That is a different factor. It's also an inner factor, but it's also internal factor, but it's going to be dealt with separately after this one. But when we're talking about inner critic, we're mainly talking about you criticizing yourself and your actions. So it's like there is nothing that you do that is right. Very, very similar to what we spoke about when we spoke about the thought disorders and distortions of thought, dysfunctionality in thinking. So we're super active or too active inner critic is also a thought dysfunction. It's a thought dysfunction because it's almost all the time judging you no matter what you do. So the inner critic will judge you and condemn you even when you are doing something that is positive. But most of the time when you are doing something that is negative, this inner critic is overactive. And even when you're not doing something that's negative, it's just overzealous, overactive, telling you that you are not doing this well, and that brings you to an emotional stress, and it causes side effect that you are so stressed because you feel like you can never do anything right. It's all like you are doing this wrong, you are doing that wrong, you are doing that wrong. It's one thing for somebody from outside to be telling you that, but when it is living within you, and when it is inside your heart and inside yourself, that the critic and the thoughts, it's like thoughts are coming to you all the time, that everything you are doing is wrong. So you are always hearing the thing in yourself saying you are a bad person, and you messed up, and that you are not loved. Nobody will love you, nobody will welcome you, nobody cares for you, you are a burden to everyone. So these kind of things could lead to suicide. So superactive inner critic leads to, most of the time will lead to suicide. And overzealous inner critics, when you don't deal with it, could also lead to mass shooting. Apart from killing yourself, apart from killing oneself, one could end up killing other people as well. Because the inner critic is always blaming you for everything you do, and making you to think that other people are also seeing you that way, that you are not good for nothing, that you are always wrong, that there is nothing you do that is good enough. And you will be also suspecting other people, thinking, and that thought, that inner critic will start as a thought, but apart from it being a thought in you, it will create a feeling in you that is who you are bad. And then it will create a feeling in you that is how other people are seeing you. It will also create a feeling in you that is what other people are thinking about you. So it's and at the end of it, when you cannot deal with it anymore, you just submit to it, and because it's too much of it, just submit to it and end up just being depressed, and it could lead to being suicidal, like I said. So I'm going to now talk to you about how to deal with this. How do we battle this? How do we deal with these inner critics? First of all, the first thing you need to do to battle with your overactive, overzealous, hyperactive inner critic is, number one, you remember what I told you about writing down, your thoughts that you have. We have to go back to that class again and to that same exercise. You've got to begin to observe yourself. You have to begin to listen to yourself from beside. You have to begin to follow your thoughts and find out how and when that thought comes again. So you take your journal or your computer and write down, okay, I have this thought now. How many times do you have it in a day? And like I taught you in that class, how to cope with thought disorder. So fix it down. After you have written it down, then there are some other things that you have to do. But first of all, you've got to be able to identify those negative thoughts, those inner critics. Because if you don't recognize something, you will not be able to deal with it, number one. Number two, you have to be able to know the enemy by his name. So you've got to know the difference between inner critic, superactive or hyperactive inner critic, or just a regular inner critic that is just normal for everybody. The inner critic that is normal for everybody is when your conscience is just telling you that that's not good. But it will not be like an incessant voice, like a consistent voice telling you, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. It will not over pressure you. It will not over, it will not be, pushing you, and it will not be a repeated thought that you cannot get rid of. But when it is hypercritic, like that inner critic that is hyper and over, it keeps on coming to you. It keeps on incessantly bothering you. And that is what most of the time will lead to schizophrenia. And a lot of people have become schizophrenic because of this superactive inner critic. So that you will easily know that it's not normal. For normal people, they can do things and then they will know it's wrong because the conscience is there, but it's mild. The way conscience works, especially when it is coming from God, the way God works in general is in a subtle, mild way. It corrects you in a like a suggestion. It doesn't push you. It doesn't oppress you. It doesn't push things on you. It doesn't make you do things. It just comes, like a gentle reminder, like just some suggestion, like, a reminder. But the inner critic, especially when it's superactive, is like condemnation. It comes to condemnation. You see what you are doing. You have done it again. You are bad. You are not good enough. You see, you've killed yourself. You are a bad person. The people will never respect you. They will never take you. You have destroyed yourself. It's hyperactive inner critic. So you have to be able to understand that is not normal. So once you understand that this inner critic, which is bringing negative thoughts, negative feelings, feelings of self-condemnation, once you know that it is not normal, it's not normal. That is the first step. You know that it's not normal, write it down, document how frequently you come across that. So the first thing is recognize the enemy. That this is bad, this is not normal. It is not the normal thing that happens to normal people. Other people, it's a problem, and I have to deal with it. I have to overcome it. Then the next thing you have to do, the next point, you need to know that superactive inner critic is not you. That is not you. You need to realize that when those thoughts are coming and they are pressing you, they are taking negative, the most problem why people become schizophrenic and why people become suicidal because of inner critic is that they identify those inner critics, they identify those negative thoughts with themselves. They think that it is they who are talking like that, who those are their thoughts, they are the ones. No, that's what I want you to recognize here, that the negative voices, the condemnation voices, and all those, active words that are telling you negative things about yourself, depressing thoughts, you know that they are not you. Those thoughts are not you. They are external. They are coming out of you. They are coming from inside of you, but it's not you. That is not you. That is not who you are. This is very strong. I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to learn to separate yourself from your thoughts. The fact that you are thinking one way doesn't mean that that is who you are. But when you accept it as who you are, when you accept it as your thought, then as a man thinks, that is who he is. It becomes you. It becomes who you are. But you don't have to accept it. Okay, a thought could come to you now that go and kill your father. It came to you. It came from inside of you to your mind. But it's not you. I don't want to kill my father. I love my father. I love my parents. Or a thought might come to you, go and steal. But you don't have to do it. So the fact that a thought is coming to you, to your mind, and it's in your own head or in your mind, that doesn't mean that that is you. So, for example, when a thought comes to you that you should go and rob a house and steal, you are mature enough to know that no, I'm a good person, I'm different from that. That is not who I am. I don't steal. I know better. I've been taught that stealing is bad. I know I cannot be an armed robber. That is not me. So you see that example right there should show you a way of how to deal with any negative thoughts that come to you, especially inner critic thoughts. Because you can, if you can divide them and separate them, if you can separate any thought that comes to you from you, and convince yourself and make yourself to know that that is not you are, and that voice of condemnation that comes to you is not you at all, that you are different, then you are 50% free. You are 50% on your way to freedom. That is the most important factor in overcoming any negative thought, any thought disorder, and any distortion in thoughts, including the distortion of inner critics. So the next thing you want to do about this is that you make a decision, you take a decision that since these thoughts are not mine, I am just going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to just separate myself from it. I'm going to just observe it from beside. I know it's not mine, so I'm blocking it out. Close the door against it. Just block it. Once those inner thoughts are coming, those negative thoughts are coming, just shut the door. It's just like, I want you to imagine something, that somebody is knocking at your window, at your door of your house. What that person that is knocking at your door wants you to do is to come to the door, recognize the knock, and maybe start a conversation. Who is there? But the whole goal, the eventual goal, the end result of the person knocking or talking to you, what he wants you to do at the end of the day is for you to open the door. And when you open the door, that guest becomes your guest. That person enters into your apartment. He enters into your room. Now, the same way you should be looking at thoughts. When negative thoughts come to you, you don't have to accept it. Just like you don't have to let in the visitor that comes to you. That thought is a visitor. You can keep the door shut, shut it out, shut the gate out. You don't even need to open a conversation, because most often people run into trouble when they begin to discuss. When they open the conversation, oh, who is there? Why did you come here? You know, you can open a conversation with a friend, with somebody who comes to knock at your door. Then you stand the risk of being convinced to open the door. Same with your thoughts. When the negative thoughts are coming, you don't even need to open a conversation with it. You don't even need to consider it. You don't even need to open a conversation at all. You just shut it down. Just don't pay attention. Just know the door is locked. You lock the door. Lock another door inside. Put the other door and just say, no way. When you are able to do that, you are killing those negative thoughts and you are defending yourself, protecting yourself, and setting yourself free. So that's the next point. We have to how to overcome these negative thoughts and inner factors that may lead to depression, and how to overcome it. Okay, I'm thinking, should I add that to the topic? Internal factors that may be responsible for depression, because people might not know that I'm talking about how to overcome them here. So after shutting the door, and you don't open the gates, you don't open the window, you don't open the door to those thoughts, you are already victorious. You are 50. That thought will never overtake you. If you don't accept it, it will never overtake you. You say, before Satan could overtake you, before any thoughts could overtake you, even before inner thoughts, even conscience, you don't have to accept what your conscience is saying. That's why some people even make their conscience sear. They shut the conscience down in such a way that their soul, their conscience is seared. So you can actually, the same way, seal out all those negative thoughts. You have the power because you don't know that you accept them. But when you identify, when you think that, when you say that they are your thoughts, that is when you actually make them your own. And that's when they begin to do anything they want with you. So those factors, I mean, those, when you refuse to open the door, you will become the owner of your house. You will become the owner of your thoughts. You become the owner of your life. You can be laughing at them, even when those inner critic come and those negative opinions and thoughts come against you. You can just be laughing at them. You just be looking at them from a higher place. That no, I am above it. This is not me. So once you are not allowing them to come in, you are on top, then you know that you are now the winner. You are the winner. Another thing you could do about this thought, though, is that you could also confess positive things about yourself. You could begin to say positive things about yourself and imagine the opposite. Just begin to paint the picture of the opposite feelings, opposite reaction, opposite thing of the thing that those thoughts were suggesting. Begin to feel more positive about yourself and begin to confess more positively about your life. I will also recommend you to go and listen to my messages on how to make the word become flesh. I speak more in details about how to convert, how to create a new reality for yourself. So now I told you that there are two main factors that I want to talk about today, that are two main internal factors that might be responsible for your depression. One, of course, is the inner critic that I spoke about. The second factor is negative thinking. So let's talk about this as well. The second factor is negative thinking. Negative thinking is another factor that, another inner factor, that's an inner factor or internal factor that is responsible for people's depression. So what's the difference between inner critic and negative thinking? Inner thinking is regarding you, is your conscience that is hyperactive, condemning you for everything you do. But negative thinking is thinking negative about other people and thinking negative about situations, about reality, things that happen around you. So this is also a bad thing because it leads you to judging other people. It leads you to judging people harshly, more harshly than necessary. It leads you to judging situations more harshly than necessary. It makes you to see things, almost everything, in the negative. You see almost everything negative, especially concerning other people. So that's why we call it negative thinking. So negative thinking, is also connected and is similar to the thought disorders that I spoke about in the past. But this is mainly when you are inside yourself. It's an internal factor because nobody knows, but it's going on inside of you, and you are always fighting with that, or maybe you are not even fighting it, but you are always thinking anything anybody does, you are always seeing it in the negative. And it's a problem, and it's a disorder as well. And it's something that, because when everything around you is negative, you will not be able to live in a normal world, and you are not seeing things in an objective way. Everybody is bad. You will think everybody is bad. Everything is bad. So you'll be isolated. You'll be alone in your own world, which will lead to depression. And that could lead to suicide because everybody is bad. Nobody is good. You don't see anything good in anybody. So, and the problem with negative thinking like that, if you begin to think about other people, it will compound. It will always grow. You start with one person, to go to another person. It's one situation to go to another one. So it becomes a cycle, a vicious cycle that you will not be able to come out of. So how do we deal with this? When you have a negative thing, when you have negative thinking like this, thinking about bad about other people, thinking bad about situation, first thing you want to do is that you want to also block that thought process. You want to stop thinking like that. So first, the most important thing is to stop the process, block it out, and say, no, this is not me. I'm not going to accept this teaching. They may talk, it's not my problem. I'm not going to think about this. Whatever other people is doing is their own problem. So convince yourself that you are not responsible for other people's actions. So it's not my matter or my issue to talk about other people, to think about other people. Let other people think for themselves. That is not for you to be indifferent, but just for you to refuse to think negatively about other people. Yes, you could see negative things that you want to correct, but then if the healthy way to see negative and want to correct is that you want to help people, or you want to correct and do good, it will not be negative that way that it will affect you, or it will affect of your opinion about other people. It will be like you really want to rather help people. But the kind of negative thinking that we're talking about is the negative thinking that is making you even feel bad, or that's making you feel bad about other people. But the positive, one whereby you just notice something negative is that you want to help people, that you notice something that is wrong and you want to help people. That is totally different. But this one we are talking about is when it makes you feel bad, and it makes you also feel bad about other people, towards other people. So the first thing you want to do about it is to just train yourself and caution yourself that, no, I'm not going to think negative about other people or about the situation, because I'm not responsible for it. Other people are responsible for their own lives. Other people don't go about thinking about you. So other people are not going about thinking about me. So I'm not going to think about other people. I'm going to think only good about them. So another thing you could do to stop that, because the most important thing is for you to stop it. So if you cannot stop it like that by convincing yourself, one thing you could do is that you could just change your activity in that particular time. So whatever you are doing, switch that activity to another activity. Or another thing you could do is go and find something that you find pleasure in and go and engage in it. Instead of thinking negative about other people, about things, find something that is encouraging to you. Find something that is, that you find pleasure in, and just go and change that activity you are doing now and go and be involved in another activity. Another thing you can do is that you could just, to stop that thought, pick up your phone and call some other friends, somebody else that you feel good about, and just chat and have a call or send messages to people. Open a conversation with somebody else about another topic. Another thing you could do is go out and take a walk, or go and play a sport, or go and walk out. Another thing you could do is go and get yourself busy with something creative and demanding. Another thing you could do is go and send a message, go and write something, go and encourage somebody, go and put on your praise and worship music or something like that. Read your Bible. Or if you are a housewife, go and look for what to do in the house. Put the house in order, for example. If you're a man, go and look for what to do to help your husband, to help your wife, and to maybe in the house or your compound. Because scientists and especially psychologists have come out with the conclusion that people who have negative thoughts and negative thinking like this, that if they engage in activities that are enjoyable to them, that they forget, they are able to overcome those negative things. Or if they engage in a pleasurable or activities, also they are able to forget about negative thinking. Or if they are productive, if they are engaged in something productive where they are seeing the result of what they are doing, it also helps them to overcome the negative feelings and the negative thoughts they are having about other people. But the most important thing you should know is that even those thoughts too, they are not yours. That it is not me. I don't hate anybody. I love people. That's not my thought. I refuse to accept it. So you have to refuse to accept it, close your door against it, and take your thought to somewhere else. Because once you begin to think that they are your thoughts and that is you, then that is where the problem is. You begin to own it, it becomes your own, and it has domination over you. But the most important thing is, don't let those thoughts have dominion over you. The Bible says casting out imagination. These are all imaginations, thoughts. We have to cast them out and submit it to the Lordship of Jesus, which is submit them to the will of God, to the right things, the right thinking. Everything that is right, everything that is good, everything that is positive, only those things we should think about. Well, I hope this has been helpful to you guys, and that will be the end of it today. I will still talk about another factor tomorrow, connected to inner factors that are responsible for depression. But these two ones are very important: the inner critic and the negative thinking. So please, if you have not yet noticed the book that I put on there, it is called The Veritable Source of Energy. That book will help you to get the energy to be able to do all these things that we are talking about. It will give you the strength to be from your inner man, to be able to deal with inner challenges and inner thoughts and negative thoughts and inner critics. So if you want to get the book, you can get it on Amazon or okadabooks.com. That's electronically, but you can get the paper book on dsabooksplanet.com. One word, dsabooksplanet.com. And I would also like to encourage you to join my mentorship program, which is sundayadelajablog.com/mentorship. You can join our Nigerian trip as well, our Nigerian team, by going to sundayadelajablog.com/Nigeria. So thank you so much for your time, and see you next time. Peace.